car park out.
A switch.
Can you hear us now? John?
Yes, thank you.
So Jamie, don't forget that switch.
It's an important.
Actually, it's important. We might be able to use that switch. Yeah. Like a friend of mine used to wear a hearing aid. And it went, and he would just go click. I don't have to hear this anymore. All right, a few notations from me in red. Otherwise, does anyone have any comments?
Nope.
We accept the minutes as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Passed. I'd like to take a moment to talk about our improvements. I'm going to move this up. There's going to be another meeting here after this meeting, correct? So we're going to try to move along.
As soon as this one's done.
Yeah. No, there's no limitation on our ability to beat our gums. It's just that they want to be here, say 10:45, 11 o'clock. You know, and also, you know, you think about after 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Never too long, never enough time to.
I understand all of that. Okay, a few notes with regard to planning board improvement, and that is that it's our challenge, and that we are essentially wasting our time if we don't take the business of learning our ordinances and then upholding them seriously. A planning board has the responsibility of being familiar with the land use regulations. The board cannot not effectively carry out its responsibilities if members lack this knowledge. A planning board that is ignorant of its own ordinances will default. What is the meaning of improvement? The planning board is the only civic body that can vote yes or no on an application. The planning board is obligated to uphold its ordinances under state law. Members who say nothing contribute nothing. In order for the planning board to be effective, each member needs to ask questions, make comments, and observations during the meeting. Like, how many of us read the agenda before today's meeting and have been thinking about what each of us is prepared to say on each of the matters before the board? And that's what, yay, that's
Yeah.
exactly what we ought to be doing. We must review applications, discuss standards, and deliberate amongst ourselves. We can't do this if we don't talk to each other, and we have to do it in public. Like, that camera is always running. So we have to get used to the idea that we talk to each other and debate the subjects right here in front of everybody. We have to become good at doing this in public. The town depends on the planning board, and the planning board's work is serious and difficult. And if this is not your concept for volunteer committee work, please make room for another. So what is this about? Are we ready for the future? It has been the planning board's history to react rather than to be proactive. And how many of you have thought to yourself, oh, we should have thought of that? That is, when it's in front of us and when it's a problem and when it's on the table, oh, we should have thought of that. We've got to be proactive rather than reactive. We can't deliver the development that the voters have approved if we don't prepare for it. So what will be our next challenge? What will be the next application submission? Does the planning board have the ordinances in place to make the challenges that are coming in the future? The development that the voters have said they want is what we have in the current ordinances. Is this what we will need to uphold the ordinances? That's what we have for today. Is this what we need for the future? Do we believe the current ordinances anticipate the challenges that are coming in the future? If not, what ordinances are needed? As an example, if there were a proposal presented for shoreline development, do we have the ordinances to deal with that today? More development usually leads to more parking demand. Are we ready to deal with more parking demand? Should the planning board review the benefits and disadvantages of shared parking? If the planning board decides to do something about these or other issues that members and alternatives believe are important, the planning board needs to determine whether the ordinances needed are there in the ordinance planning book now. If not, it's time to propose and compose new ordinances to deal with the new issues. What are the steps? First, we consult with the town planner. Hello, Liz. And we consult with planning board counsel about specific matters. We draft warrant proposals. We discuss and debate them at the regular planning board meetings or special meetings. And we ask for select board input. We obtain council's approval on the wording, and then the warrant is submitted to the select board for town meeting. Those are the steps we have to take, and we have to start now if we're going to have anything ready for next season. Well, that's we can start thinking about that, and we'll start doing it today.
Mr. Bill,
Any comments? Yes.
I hate to ask this question. But do we have any idea what type of things our great friends down in Concord are gonna put upon us?
No.
We can chuckle,
I know.
but we all know what happened with those things that I use the word, put upon us.
No, it's an imposition. Yes.
They did to us last year,
Yep.
but we don't know what's gonna happen. We'll just kind of track it as we go. I didn't see anything. I try and stay on top of it, but
There's nothing
I
currently.
didn't know, see anything, but
Nope.
thought I'd ask.
The latest proposals is a Senate bill that would restrict municipalities from limiting dead-end road length or number of lots on those roads. So that's the only thing that kind of perked, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So we'll see, what. If that becomes anything,
Are we talking about?
but other than that, it's the only one I'm aware of
No,
right
but it
now.
will come up.
So wait for a question.
Okay, any other comments? I would like, one subject it's still on the agenda and we should try to resolve it, and that is, what should we do with Zoom? There's John on Zoom. Should Zoom be used for those that the planning board wish to invite to the meeting? And that everybody else is on YouTube? That is, there are times when, when people can't come to the meeting and we put them on Zoom, the connection doesn't work very well. It's somewhat disturbing to participate through Zoom. I want to know what everybody thinks about Zoom. That is, some people believe that we should eliminate using Zoom. Some people believe that Zoom should be only for those who we invite, as an example with the SE group. When they were not able to come to deliver their findings, they were on the Zoom. And well, it worked. But should we limit it to that?
I would say yes, and having been someone who's had, periods of time over the last like 5 years where I couldn't be here, my ability to interact, read the room and really participate is, near zero. Yeah, I would think it's just for outside presenters that are geographically unable. Otherwise, members and can go like the public does to YouTube. That would be my vote.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've had several occasions where I had a conflict and I did not have the Zoom access. And believe me, when you're on YouTube, you are totally isolated. You don't even get a chance to raise your hand or that kind of thing. So, whether it's Zoom or where's the hospital use? Teams, one of the, I think it's a necessary thing. I would just like to know as a planning board member, whenever we have an agenda, that I get the Zoom.
So I don't put the Zoom on the agenda anymore,
Right.
because then that's public, so
Right.
we didn't wanna do that anymore.
But is there some way to give it to the members of the planning board so that if we're unable to be at the meeting in person, we can join?
Just let me know, I'll send it out.
Had that situation a couple of times. I just send an email and they send me the link.
Yeah, I was looking for something a little more automated than, I mean, I can do that, but.
I mean, it's up to, the chair and the board, if you want me to include the Zoom link in when I send an email, I can, then. That's up to you guys, it does not matter to me.
Liz, is there
any?
You're gonna wanna put a policy in place, just have one, for, explaining what the purpose of it is. Which I have a draft one from Easton that, I can pull up.
what did Easton decide?
So they only use Zoom for public hearings, not public meetings. So only when there's applications, and Bethlehem does the same. Public attendance, they require it. Zoom is not a form of going back and forth. It is mainly for, the planning board members who need to be here, but that being said, a quorum still needs to be in person. So it can be optional, it's not required, so.
Okay, Dan?
On the select board, we limited use of Zoom. It's very disruptive to have people trying to interact. So if the public wants to make comments, they need to come to the meetings and they can speak. And that's appropriate. Otherwise, we've had very rare occasions. I think James was on one where we had you connected by Zoom, but that was sort of a special circumstance.
That's an invited guest.
That was an invited guest, if you will. So that works fairly well. I don't think it's conducive to try and run a meeting in particular where we may have a large number of individuals wishing to speak, where you have half of them on Zoom and half of them in here. And it just turns it into chaos, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank, Catherine.
So I agree with that as far as the public going back and forth. But I just want to make sure that our planners would then always be like, for some reason, they can always zoom in because that's always helpful to have, whether it's Liz or Terry, to have that person on Zoom for us to, as a reference. So can that be written in that?
Yes.
I mean, I consider it an invited guest, I guess.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes, it is the,
Board members, like,
it's an unwritten policy, but the policy at the moment is that for planning board meetings, planning board members need to be present in person.
for a quorum.
Well, for a quorum, but
Yeah.
just that if you want to participate in the meeting and you're expected, I'll start by saying you're expected to attend all the meetings. If you're going to be a planning board member, you're expected to be here. Well, there are always exceptions, but you're expected to be here in person. That's not a written policy, but I'm suggesting that that be the policy and that Zoom be used for invited guests and that everybody else is on YouTube.
Including members and alternates?
Yes,
I would like my opinion is have members and alternates zoom in any presented guest and then the public is YouTube. That's just my opinion, just because.
okay, but that's what I'm interested in. This is a committee.
May I give you a perspective from a town employee?
Go ahead.
So Zoom allows me to multitask, sitting in 2.5 hour meetings. When my section may only be a 10 or 15 minute conversation, allows me to do other work at the same time. So the reason for me being on Zoom is I can get a lot of other things done, while I'm waiting and still be part of the conversation.
Fine, you're an invited guest.
Thank you.
Mike,
A lot of us, or some of us at least, are involved with various other things. Within the valley, within the state, within the country, or whatever. I'm on a Zoom meeting 2 or 3 times a week around the country. And what Dave said is absolutely true. I'm sitting in a 3-hour meeting where I'm expected to actually be there the whole time. However, they only need me for a half hour or whatever. That's common. That happens all the time. If I'm not there actually paying attention on Zoom and contributing, then as you say, it is important that we contribute. You can't contribute on YouTube. You can contribute on Zoom. I think that it's very important for all of us. Yeah, there are times when we're incommunicado because I'm wherever right now. Or we all are. But aside from that, if we can be there electronically and contribute, we should. That's why we're here.
okay, so let's put Alan,
Are applicants invited guests?
applicants?
Mhm.
Yes, well, it depends.
No,
If-
they should transcend it.
But
of course.
if there's an application before the board, the applicant should be present.
Okay, and what about his attorney?
I would put him in the same category. That's my
As
opinion.
long as we have a policy, I can live with anything.
We're trying to deal
But
with
it's gotta
that.
be rigid, fixed.
Yes, yeah.
I think the only what people, if you care about my opinion, is that the board members, alternates, and any invited guests are the exclusive to Zoom. Other than that, everybody needs to present in person. And
Okay,
I
so,
concur with,
So I have a question, Bill.
Yes.
So I have we have someone that calls the town office and asks for the Zoom link for the planning board meeting. Am I to just say no, or am I to ask you, or what?
no, you're to invite them to listen, watch, and be part of the meeting by YouTube.
Just so we know.
And that's
All
what we
right,
get from
so-
the select board, right?
In order to keep the meeting going as we need a motion and to determine what the board thinks about this.
I'll try them. I move that members and alternates be able to access meetings through Zoom. Invited guests should be able to access through Zoom. All of the people which should be restricted to YouTube.
Or
Or in person.
Or obviously, or in person. Sorry. Yes.
Okay,
I thought that was, yeah.
I'll amend it by saying that members and alternates are expected to attend almost all meetings in person. And it's also, okay, I won't be amending, but it's my view that Zoom should be restricted to invited guests. And if members can't attend, they should watch on YouTube.
I would second that.
Well, that's an amendment.
Oh, that's-
Okay, so now, what's to happen is if you don't agree with the motion, then you vote no.
No, the amendment.
You'll
We
vote
vote on the amendment.
You'll vote
Vote
on the amendment.
first.
Then the
Yeah,
motion.
okay, I agree with that.
I
I don't have a choice, I agree.
Let me give you my opinion.
Yes,
Tina and I still travel. I have zoomed in. Depending on where I am. Possibly, I've zoomed in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. A lot of us still travel. All right. We're at age or whatever. I don't have a problem. I zoom into meetings all the time. And I think most of us in other situations use Zoom. I don't think it's
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I
okay,
will say,
then now we're voting on the amendment.
Amendment, okay.
That's my.
so the amendment
Oh.
is that if you're not in person, you, as an
Alright.
alternate or a member, you
You're
are
on
not,
YouTube.
you're on YouTube. Okay,
Okay.
so I will just say that I know I will not be here in August, and if I cannot zoom in, I will not join, because what's the point? I can't, I'll just watch it later.
So, okay. So we vote,
we
then
get
what
to
do we
vote?
do? Call the question here to,
Alternates.
I would say that,
so,
well, there's also, that's another question. It's policy, but aside from, and I'm gonna look at Liz about this, but aside from matters that are pertaining to a vote on an application, that alternates may vote
No, unless they're seated for someone.
unless they're seated.
Alternates can be in on the discussion, but not the final vote.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
Therefore, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I needed to seat somebody, correct?
And
You don't
Well,
have
then
to.
John.
if you have a quorum,
John's here.
John's here.
And we had in the past have allowed Zoom attendees to vote
Correct.
in the past.
So if he's a member and he's not on Zoom, he doesn't get to vote.
Then then there will be an alternate seated.
Correct.
But John's here and we haven't changed the policy, so John votes on Zoom. Okay, all right. The amendment is now on the floor for a vote. The amendment states that only present members participate in the meeting, that a member who cannot be present will be able to watch on Zoom. Only those who are invited guests will be invited to use Zoom in a meeting. Everybody else is on YouTube
or in person,
or in person. Yes, you're expected to be here in person.
yes.
And Rob, did you second that one?
I did second.
Yes. So now we're going to vote on it.
the amendment.
The amendment. So that means that if you're in favor of the restricting YouTube, you vote yes. If you're not in favor, you vote no.
I thought it was the other way.
If you're in favor of,
The amendment.
yeah, the only people who can be on Zoom are invited guests,
That means no board members.
Right.
So,
then you would vote
Yes.
yes, if you're in favor of that.
If you want to be able to use Zoom as a board member, you would say no.
I,
Yes, no.
What is it?
excuse me, point of,
Yes,
I believe that the way it was stated was that the board members could be on Zoom, however, there was no interaction,
no, I proposed an amendment.
that they're not allowed to be on Zoom.
Correct.
That's correct. That Zoom is restricted only to invited guests.
Okay,
No.
You're not up, you know. Okay, I vote yay.
No,
No.
I think no.
John,
No.
Okay, the amendment fails. Now, the motion. Would you kindly restate your motion? No.
I move that members and alternates be allowed to attend meetings through Zoom. In addition, invited guests can attend through Zoom. Anyone can attend in person. All others must attend on YouTube. That come
Okay,
close?
satisfactory.
That came close.
Okay, a second, please.
Second.
Now, the vote.
Yes.
Okay,
you,
nay.
yes,
Yes.
Yes.
John,
Yes.
the motion passes. So that's our new policy.
Okay.
And it shall be recorded in the minutes when we review those. Okay. All right. Also, I do not wish to, I want to keep this meeting moving, but remember we had the SE group come here and give us their recommendations about our ordinances. I will put that on the agenda for the next meeting, but I want to keep going. So that I don't want to lose the opportunity to review the ordinances based on what the SE consulting group advised. Do you recall what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I recall what you're talking about, but I don't recall the specific suggests by some of them.
Then it shall be reviewed again.
Yeah.
And we will then talk about
That is maybe.
whether our ordinances measure up to the recommendations, and if they don't, what alterations we wish to make to the ordinances so that they comply with the recommendations. And because I'm looking at you because
But maybe I get back tonight.
all right. Now I want to talk about the site plan conditions review with respect to the ESO login system. Special thanks to Morgan for doing the heavy lifting. Yes, you did most of the work. So there is.
She did.
All right, what is who's on your committee?
So it's the CIP committee, the three of us, but this was something separate.
Okay, tell us what happened and tell us how this will benefit the board in the future.
So, Rob and I met with Chief Noise, about the ESO system as a way to track the conditions, because right now, I don't know. Dave, what does ESO stand for?
Chief?
It's just the name of the company. I'm sure there's some acronym. We've always known it as just ESO, formerly Firehouse is what it was called.
Okay, irrelevant.
Yeah.
Carry on.
So it's a, like, kind of a one-stop shop. We have not a full version, but it's not super limited either. And that, like, they can track, it's based on the building and the land. So, like, right now, the outdoor adventure zone hasn't been built, but it still has land, so it has an address. And then you can do the conditions based on that, and you can say, okay, we had issues with plowing or whatever it may be. And then once something's built, you can attach like conditions to it, or it logs like if there was a fire call or something like that. So it's all inclusive of like what Chief Noise in the town does, and like Alicia uploads documents and It's like a sort of a one-stop shop to track something based on the building or the land. So based on that, Chief Noise gave us a quick rundown of it and taught us how to upload things like the conditions of approval, which is what we are focusing on from the planning board perspective. So there's a notice of decision that goes out and that's signed and dated, and that gets uploaded. And then from that, I created a spreadsheet so that we could have a way for everybody to see it rather than just the two of us that have access to ESO. And here's, there's three that way.
Morgan, is the
Where is it posted?
spreadsheet a direct output of the system, or is it something you have to
Yeah.
then create?
Yeah, it is word for word of the conditions.
But you didn't have to type it twice into the spreadsheet, did you?
Oh, I did, because they're PDFs, and I could have asked Alicia, but then it would take too long, so I just typed it.
Thank you.
So
Just on the
just to-
website?
The
Where-
conditions of approval, so if you go to the town website and there's a search bar at the top and you just write notice of decision, it'll pop up with everything that's labeled that, and then you can find based on what it is, so. It's Golden Heights Roads, not what we know it as the villas, right? So it's based on the address. So this,
Yeah, just
Yeah.
real quick, Phil, you asked, where is this posted? It's not posted yet because we wanted to, come review it here. Get any feedback on the format, does it meet the needs of the planning board because it's really through Dave, us reporting, here.
Yeah.
Get that feedback, and Dave also, I think indicated in, email that there's some enhanced ways that we
Yeah.
can have it not be so manual. So I don't think we want to lock this down until we get this feedback. We meet with Dave again. And then next meeting, we'll come back with, we think this is final, and then we can take it, post it
Yeah.
wherever it's appropriate.
it's like just looking at it, they're clear format errors, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it's not finished.
So the first one on the first page is the 17 Village Road, which I put the AKA in, who the responsible party is, the date of the decision, if there were any waivers, and then verbatim, well, it's not quite verbatim because it's very difficult in a spreadsheet to fill out everything in that very long paragraph of what the condition was. And then we could basically just check these off and say, yes, this has been completed, no, it hasn't. So I think if we look at 4 Golden Heights Road, which is on the second page, be easier because this is going to tie into the Conservation Commission as well. So this was the notice of decision was September 21st, 2023. So we've had plenty of time to decide whether or not these conditions have been met. So replace split rail fence with evergreen vegetation for the length of the 6 parking spaces and pruned as needed. So we can say, has that been met? And it's not necessarily going to be us. It could be Chief Noise being like, did they, or Megan from DPW saying, did they change the snow storage and did they do it correctly?
Mhm.
Those sorts of things are the things. It's not necessarily the planning board who's going to go out and say, yeah, they did the snow removal correctly. It's Megan who's going to report back to us, which I think she did because it was supposed to be in May 2024 and May 2025. So right now, we still have to collect whether or not that's been done, but the conditions are here and this is the base of what we're trying
Yeah.
to go off.
And we want to get the format right first, and then we'll populate, actually, Dave will tell us complete or not complete.
Right,
Okay.
or I mean, Alicia, like, did they give you all that stuff? Like, did they give you the construction timeline and all that?
Well, what I can foresee is that we'll use this every meeting.
I think it should be a bullet point update, just like the, commission, CIP, definitely.
You have a problem?
I don't know. I have a question.
Just a minute. Yes, go ahead.
Let's put Dan.
Okay, fine. Dan, you're on. You have
Yeah,
the
as a
floor.
matter of precedent, is it acceptable for instance, DPW to modify conditions without notification of the planning board?
Well, they wouldn't
If
modify the
planning board Put
condition.
these conditions in, and it says here DPW allowed a change.
Mm.
Was the
Yep.
planning board notified of those modifications.
Okay, my understanding of what that means is if there is a change that's proposed that is, well, during the construction of the adventure zone, there may be a change proposed.
Yeah.
And that proposed change would be inserted in here by DPW or Dave's department.
Yeah, and from I have a separate sheet
That
here, but
is, it's a matter that comes before the planning board. And if it's approved, then the change can be inserted into this condition sheet.
so this is from the conditions of approval, and it says the proposed plan moves snow storage to the east side of Golden Heights Road. The Department of Public Works agrees to allow this change if snow is removed from the site and carried across the road, yada, yada, yada. So that's in the original.
Is that what you meant, Dan? I think,
Yes, in the sense of, well, it says DPW allowed change to snow storage.
yeah, I think your question
On
is,
here.
can
My
anybody
concern
change?
Is that parties outside of the planning board are making decisions with respect to the conditions that have been set
Okay, my,
without the
I
approval
brought
of the
that up.
planning board.
I brought that up at that time.
okay, my
And I
answer
just
to
wanna
that,
Make sure that the planning board, any changes or, the planning board needs to be notified of any
Yes.
changes
well,
to
no,
these
any,
conditions.
I would say
beforehand.
any
Yes.
changes that are made are gonna be
Yeah.
made by the planning board.
Have to be accepted. by the
Yes.
planning.
Accepted
Correct.
by the planning. board.
Yeah,
I
and I think
agree.
it's just that, like, this transfer error, like, it's not, this is a whole paragraph and I couldn't put that in here, so
Okay,
I think that's just that
'Cause you were
semantics of
saying
it.
it was part of the original proposal, so the planning board did actually have input on it. It's just because of how it lined up on here and
Yeah.
wrote out, it looks like it happened after the fact.
Correct, but that is
Okay.
a great point to make because I have to be more careful about what I write.
Yeah, again, draft.
Yep.
Okay, does that answer your
Rough drafts.
question?
yes.
And, but the actual actual maintenance of this, it is not our job, I don't believe, to go out and look and see that the conditions are done. It is up to code enforcement to do that, who actually works for the select board. And if it is not done properly, then we have a problem that applies both to the select board and the planning board if we want something done to that non-compliance.
Right.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's the select board is enforcement. Planning board is managing and alerting to select board that something's not done, and that's what this is a tool to do.
Right.
Yeah, and this is basically just like putting on paper what Chief Noise already does. And this is just so we can look at it and say, yeah, we did follow through, right?
My understanding is that when Chief Noise finds that a condition is not done, they initially notify select board, who notifies us, is my understanding, since the it's so silly. Since the enforcement people, Dave, works for the select board, right? Because he works for there, he doesn't notify us directly. He starts that notification with the select board,
Select board.
all right? Who turns around and says, hey, blah, 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 blah. Condition which you put in place is not being complied with. The developer, whoever it is, has requested a variance, requested a change to blah,
Whatever.
blah, 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 which is what comes to us.
I mean, you could
That's
ask
my
Chief.
understanding.
Chief would be the one to tell us that.
Yeah,
So the way that I typically do it is I will try to work it out with the developers. So any of those developers, if I'm seeing they're not meeting a condition, before I take action, I will give them opportunities to fix it, make reparations in order to do that. And then if I'm not getting compliance, that's when I would then bring it to the select board.
But I need to make sure that there's a communication path from the select board back to this group.
Here.
that says
you.
That
Yes,
this,
correct about that.
this.
That's your
condition
job.
Isn't being met, someone's gonna have to make
Yes.
that communication back to you guys.
Understood.
If this, the whole point of this is that there are more eyes on the prize, so to speak, to put it online so that we can all, monitor it closely. I'd like to see 2 additional rows or columns. One says select board notified, check or not check. And then a 3rd column that says, if not proceeding, what are the fines, stop work orders, things like that. So I can quickly glance at this and say, this has been completed, its select board has been notified, and what's the amelioration of it?
Yeah,
And then,
so you want to see if it's not completed, that is, if
Correct.
it's completed and there's an X there,
Yeah.
then what
then
did we do
know,
about it?
Right.
Yeah.
To follow
So
up.
essentially, yeah, it would be, if it's not completed, then chief would notify.
Select board notified.
If
And then-
he didn't already talk to the developer or whoever is in charge, he would then tell the select board, and then essentially the repercussion is they don't get their occupancy permit. They don't get to continue, they don't, like,
So I do have a question on the repercussions, because I've been working with John and Liz, to rewrite the ordinance related to development on architectural, pieces. And within that, based on consulting surrounding towns and other, ordinances within the White Mountains of New Hampshire, other towns do have ramifications and penalties written within their zoning ordinances for the planning board. So I did in fact include that in the ordinance that I drafted that John and Liz are still giving me feedback on. Does the planning board not have the right to have penalties within their ordinances? Is that something that has to come through select board enforcement?
Define what the penalties are. other than-
So
Pretty
it
sure there's
was,
fines and penalties within the site plan, but hold on.
yeah, that's what I had found, Liz, which is why I wanted to make sure, like, I wasn't stepping on toes, because that was my understanding. But so Mike, I put in there, depending on what condition was not followed, it may be a fee, or it may be a revoke of their ability to continue, or it may be XYZ. There's like 3 or 4 different conditions. But I wanted to make sure I wasn't out of line to have that attached to that ordinance.
Nope, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and looking at those, some of them could go in zoning ordinance and site plan regs.
Okay,
So they'll just be plugged in.
got
to
it.
Those documents, and they have the enforcement listed out, so yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Typically, the planning board is not an enforcement committee.
Right.
The select board is,
Right.
but they can have to say, if these things occur, this is the consequence.
This is
That
the
can be in
consequence,
the
and
ordinance,
Select board enforces it.
Yeah.
Got it.
but it's,
Okay.
yeah, it's not the planning board that does that.
Yep. No,
We
okay,
got
that
enough
makes
problems
sense.
as it
Thank you.
is. that-
Well, no, it's just,
it's so convoluted.
Yeah, it's,
if
it's
it's
the,
in there, then you know about it, and if you're not complying with the ordinance.
okay, the simple, right, the simple
Right.
answer is it's all laid out in the state ordinances, the state RSAs.
Right.
We just do what it says. Okay, that
Okay.
more or less manages that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll deal in the next step in the agenda is to deal with
could
some
I
of these
just-
items specifically. Yeah,
I
go
just
ahead.
said before getting off the ESO, and I'm the one always trying to get off. No, just real quick, I think it would be really helpful. I guess before that is any feedback you have on this, either manually or through email, get it to Morgan and I, and we'll include that when we sit down with Dave to really hopefully nail it, the final format. The other thing too is going through this ESO system with Dave, and it doesn't take long to look at the part of the system that affects us is really helpful, where you actually see, where, Dave has his checklist and everything. So I recommend on our next agenda to do time box 10-minute on the screen overview so everybody can see this ESO system.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay. I'm done.
Any other comments? No,
Um,
it's a good idea. I think we're gonna make some progress with this.
yeah, I think, I chose Golden Heights Road because the Conservation Commission had questions about it, and I know that John had asked me to read an email about
Oh.
that.
It'll come up later on in
Okay.
the agenda.
Perfect.
No, it'll be done.
Great.
Next, I wanted to talk about the CIP and the revised revisions to the process.
Yep, so
Rob, you have the floor.
I'll lead and Morgan and Kathy jump in where necessary. So where we are, we had an initial meeting preparing for the 2027 CIP and to also put a plan together for process changes. And we're meeting again on the 21st. I just wanted to review quick what we're gonna deal with there. We're gonna make sure that the CIP spreadsheet is updated from the 2026 approved items. That we have a approved impact to the CIP. And to make sure that we're starting from where we ended, because that's kind of never, or it happened in the background before. Then we're gonna go through and edit a proposed timeline, which I'll hand out.
Thank you, sir.
Proposed timeline, and then we're gonna talk about a CIP document. So what we found in looking at a lot of other town examples, and thank you, Liz, for forwarding on the ones that you did. The most towns, even towns like our size, are putting out a document, not just having a spreadsheet. And if you look at our website today, the CIP website or CIP spreadsheet that's out there hasn't been updated in a couple of years. But what other towns do, and I'm going to send around an example of that as well, just so you can look through it. It's not for discussion today, because we want to put together, an example based off the input that we got from other towns and the NHMA Municipal Association. They have a bunch of recommendations on how to format and communicate CIP. So we're going to also go into that. I'll let people just look at this. This is an example from Campton. So a town of similar size and, kind of. Well,
I get it.
similar.
Carry on.
In some ways. Anyway, we've looked at Portsmouth, who has like full-time paid staff to put
Yeah.
together graphic artists and all that
mayor.
kind of thing. And there's some great ideas in there, but that's not us. This is just an example of a document we'll put together. They call it their handbook, and the handbook will go out every year with this spreadsheet behind it. So we're working on that now. I think by next meeting, we'll have a draft. And the other thing that we're working on is, in terms of the process, is a request form. So, having a structured way that the department heads can ask us to include something on a CIP form before we meet with them. And it has things like, what is it? Funding, proposed funding source for it, so on and so forth. And we've got a bunch of examples from other towns. So we're going to be working on that and have a draft that we can pass around next meeting as well. On the timeline, now looking at how other towns do it, they're almost a year ahead of themselves because they have the items, they're pushing forward the other ones. And feedback, and Dave can jump in if he wants, but across the board on the department heads, for Waterville Valley is you start this way too late. So what this timeline here represents is we have the town meeting. By April 1st, we should have the next year's, the past year's updates from town meeting. By May 1st, we should have our first meeting, and in the future, a form will have been filled out, brought to us. We meet with the department heads. In many cases, we will, potentially have a tour, like come look at this, backhoe that we need replaced, whatever. But it's a first first take from the department heads. By July 1st, have the first draft of the CIP. So how we've been doing it to date has been first draft, and we kind of nod off it sometime late November, early December. So we're gonna have, you know, a structure by July 1st. Then we bring that back for the August planning board meeting to communicate to the overall planning board. So you're not getting a CIP in January and just saying, well, it's too late to change anything. To get feedback from the overall planning board. September 1st, we have a second meeting after having got feedback from the planning board on to the department heads. Now, a concept that has been totally not there in the past that we see a lot of towns, and Liz's, you know, recommendation as well, is having public hearings on the CIP, not having it thrown out in warrant articles that nobody knows where it came from. So that we would actually have a public hearing, you know, on or about October 1st. We'd have to bring feedback from that to the overall planning board. I also put in there, and I might have this wrong again, you know, this is a draft. Get input from the planning board, and not necessarily waiting till February 1st. I think say, hey, select board, you know, this is what we're looking to propose, and have a more interactive process with the select board, because, you know, how it's been in the past, you know, including this year, because we're in the old processes, you know, we send a select board makes a bunch of changes to it, and we're sitting there like, oh, well, you know, they decide what happens. To have that, you know, between December, you know, 1st, 15th and February 1st be iterative, you know, and I think that the CIP committee, along with the ex officio, should have, you know, a presentation to the select board, you know, because we're the ones working with the department heads, rather than saying, here's the CIP, what do you think? Be available in the meetings, you know, and again, you know, we're developing this as we go. More interactive with the select board at the end of the process. And then from there, you know, prepare warrant articles as required and go from there. So that's kind of the flow that we're thinking about. So, you know, real quick, I just say, you know, general feedback on that.
As I read that, just to prove that I actually read it just now.
Do you have any feedback on the cycle that we're proposing?
Well, I have a couple questions on the document that you had us read. One is.
Well, wait a minute, we're on the cycle.
Okay.
Okay, before we move on to that, because remember I said it's something for people to look at. We're not gonna, you know, really spend time on that, although, you know, quick question. Because we're gonna bring back our code, one that's customized for us, but anything on the cycle.
When does the, excuse me, when does the select board need to know your final recommendations in order to get it on the warrant for the March meeting?
Dan?
February.
Yeah, that would be later,
Mid-February.
in February.
Mid-February?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's a good, if you don't mind,
No, I don't mind. Okay.
that's a good point, Alan, because. One thing on that cycle, Rob, that we may wanna consider is if the intention is to hold some public hearings. You may wanna have the select board's evaluation prior to that,
Very good point.
right?
There's no point in having that we need to know what the select board thinks, because the select board's gonna say yes or no in the final analysis.
Correct.
Yep, so that would fit in like a September 15th, a cycle of select board.
Yes, I would,
Okay.
Or yeah,
that's
go
a
to
good
their, go to
recommendation.
their meeting and
Okay,
present something.
Catherine has something to say.
Just in the reading for the guidelines from the state, it was saying like really 90 days to the before the select board. So I completely agree. If we can push it up as soon as, you know, a lot sooner than February 1st. So
Like
yeah, we can
September
talk about
15th.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it looked to me that the whole purpose of this cycle is to accelerate the program.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that makes a good deal of sense.
And also too, we've discussed funding, that the CIP becomes a lot more involved in how recommendations of funding. A lot of towns do that, that it really sits in the CIP purview. So that's something else.
Dan,
Yeah, I would. After you have public hearings and if you make changes to the CIP. That then needs to come back to the select board, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
so within the more detailed timeline within the document itself, Rob, it looks like the request to present to the select boards in August, then we would present in September. And then the second presentation to the select board with the changes would be in December.
I think that's.
Does that sound right?
Yeah.
yeah, but, and by the time you get there, I mean, it's almost done. Everybody has had a chance to say what they, you know, they've chewed on it over and over again, and by the time you get to that December presentation, it's almost done.
How many public opportunities for interaction?
Well, we're suggesting, and what we do is a cycle of two.
One in October, but the other one in February?
Yeah, and I think with that both
Think,
feedback,
yeah.
we're gonna move.
Move it up to
those up.
November, maybe,
I'd say,
for
yeah.
the second public hearing.
Because
So
it's
that
that
way-
when, Dan, and you can comment on this, is when the, because I recall Rich saying the budget starts in November. You start discussing it.
Yeah, the budget in the coming year will probably start a little bit earlier, to be honest with
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
I know we're putting together a advisory finance committee to help with that process. And I believe that that's starting sooner. And so hopefully, you know, in all of what we're doing, we don't want to be doing any of this last minute.
Correct, and I
And
think
it-
that's what
That's what
we
we
were
were
So-
saying in February, we,
Yes,
I actually agree with having a nice cycle like this.
Yeah, so, and per Anna's input is the first, using the Campton example, because it's really not RSAs that dictate what we do, it's like what operationally works. So that we'd have the first select board, interaction in August.
End of August, beginning of September, and then probably move up. Once the select board's good with it, then I think maybe you do the public hearing succinctly, like October and November. Like beginning of October, maybe mid-November, and that way you can have the edits finalized, at least that's how Campton does it, by mid-December and over to the select board.
wait a minute. Are we making the decision without public support, or we're
No,
asking for their public?
we just first have to run it by the select board to make sure that they get their edits in. Then we would run that by the public, then flush all of those edits out, then run it by the public again, then put it back to the select board by December.
So are we moving up the public hearing from October to say September?
yes.
Yep,
that's
and
what-
then the other one from February to November.
Yeah, we,
What if the select board in December makes adjustments?
Then we meet again.
Then we would, yeah.
We'd have to go into another public meeting?
We don't, no.
No,
We're not
we
required
don't
to.
have to do public
Yeah.
meetings.
No.
Communication
It's a
out
best
there.
practice.
Yes,
No, I understand,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
I'm,
So, no.
if I'm sitting there as Joe Public. And I make a comment in October, November, all right, and it was accepted in that draft, and then it went to the select board, and the select board made a change. And Joe Public wasn't told of that change, Joe Public might not be happy.
The public,
That happens
public
currently.
doesn't always have to be happy.
Yeah.
I always
And
wanna
they
be
got,
happy.
they got two shots at, you know, feedback. The select board runs the town, they will have the final, they'll see it in a warrant article, good luck.
Okay,
And that being said, the select
I mean-
board will give their initial edits, so at least when we go into those two public hearings, we know what their final intent is on what Rob is working forward with Morgan on, right? So we can say, if the public does bring something up and say, oh, we'd like to see this change, we can say it will be considered. But the select board has already said this is their stance on this item within the document, so you could even share that at that point.
Yeah.
So everyone's aware that they'll get their two inputs, but at the end of it, if it's going against what the select board wants, it probably isn't gonna happen.
okay.
Yeah, I think the goal
And-
is just to get this in front of people and have more eyes on it so that when it comes to town meeting, We're not having 2-day meetings again where people are hashing out every single thing that's on the line, right?
Correct.
So that people are aware before.
We'll find
Yes,
it.
whether or not people come to the meeting is something totally different, but.
No, the final, Joe Public has his final say at town meeting.
Mhm.
That is,
Whether you vote
it's
for it.
also that, look, we've had enough experience with this now to know that what happens in exchanges with the public, there are 1 or 2 or 3 people who have everything to say, and the rest of the public says nothing. And what happens is that the vote that finally makes the decision occurs at town meeting, where we have 100 or so people from the public who make a decision.
But it's information and it's
Oh, yeah.
informing the public, not as you said in February, here, these are the warrant articles, there's 20 of them, go vote next week.
We're trying to
Yeah.
do something about that.
Correct. And so that's the benefit.
Yes.
Agreed.
Okay, so
Okay.
we will edit this cycle. This cycle will be a part of our handbook. You'll have that laid out, so every year that we put it out, people are gonna understand and get in a rhythm. Okay, around September 15th, I know I can, go and give public input, so, and, maybe 20 years.
No, you'll be here. But some of us old timers won't be, yes.
I know how, what my reading that document was, that I read. It was very interesting that the composition of Campton's CIP movie was entirely different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. There. I read it. Made this point. Theirs is made up of 6 people, 1 of which is from the planning board. And 5 of which. 5 of which are members of the public. And I guess the question that I'm asking is that should we consider having 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, but some members of the public who are not members of the planning board be members of the CIP, and are we allowed to do that?
Yes.
So I can answer that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we mentioned that about, having, members of the public, potentially,
I just think it's a great
business leaders. And what we'll do as a part of our handbook draft that, and I'm digging myself in actually having to do real work for the May meeting. We'll include our recommendation of, select board, rethinking about the select board based on Liz's input and
Yeah.
NHMA input and.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying, but like, again. For next year, I think that's something that could we could start that, like, thinking about it now and kind of like, I think that since we're trying to work on communication with the public, getting people's awareness, what is the CIP? What is that about? And start piquing interest so that could be a really great change that we implement next year. Because again, we don't want to be rushing and pushing, like that was part of my frustration. Like, we're doing a lot of really great things this year. And I think that's a fantastic idea for us to really consider maybe beginning of next year. Now we
One step at
you
a
want to do stuff that
Yeah,
we do,
small
we want to do
incremental
it well.
changes.
And then and that's a really good idea. Like I would, but again, like, let's not forget about it and let's do it for, put it on the table for next year.
I make that. Is that. One of the things that many of us have noticed is that. There is not a great step forward. By many people in the public. To come and sit in these chairs. For any of them.
Yeah, Thanks, fair. Yeah.
This is a very important committee.
Mhm.
All right, and we're sitting here talking about Joe and Jane Public having input. Couldn't cost us anything to give them the opportunity.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
public hearing.
yeah.
Yeah, so
That's what a public hearing does.
Yeah,
Bill had asked Liz about the RSAs that govern the CIP, and
Mhm.
this is a relevant section. So it is either the local legislative body may authorize the planning board to prepare and amend a recommended program for CIP, so that's all of us, or as an alternative, the legislative body may authorize the governing body of a municipality to appoint a capital improvement program committee, which shall include at least one member of the planning board and may include, but not be limited to, other members of the planning board, the budget committee, or the town or city governing body. But also, it talks about the school board being part of that. So,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
mayor,
I
or board of
noticed that
selectmen,
and I
chief
thought-
fiscal officer, budget committee, other municipal office officials and agencies, the school board or boards. The school is part of the town and they do not have anything to do with the CIP, so I don't really understand why, but.
I can explain why.
Well, you know what, I think, Steve, you brought up, you know, all the examples that you have in your experience of why is this separate? Although I think that's a larger discussion than we want to take on right now. But yeah, it is a lot, Steve explained about mine, and we don't want to go into that now.
No.
So that the spirit of it is that we need to relook at the constitution of the CIP committee. We will do that. We will provide recommendations in our draft handbook. But for this year, to Kathy's point, is our cycle kind of has already started. So what we want to do is wait till next year to put all those things in place. So I just. Go ahead. No, I'm trying to wrap up.
Yes, and I am happy to see you do it.
Okay, so for next meeting, we're gonna come back with an adjusted CIP timeline, make sure we captured everything. A draft, you know, format of the like the Campton like document, CIP handbook.
Yep.
We are also gonna have a draft form for department heads to come in to get feedback from you all. We're looking at a ton of different examples other towns use for that. And we'll have actually all the input, because between now and next meeting, we should be able to have scheduled our first meeting with department heads. So we're gonna get their input on the things that we're discussing here. So we'll come back, each meeting will come back with more mature thoughts with your input. Moving on to the next agenda item, my favorite line.
And it shall be granted, but Steve has and Alan wants to say something too.
Yeah, if I could, I just want to say, thank you to the three of you. I honestly.
Thank you for because you're.
Well, I honestly pictured myself being the catalyst to do all of the efforts that you guys have already paved and gone forward with, and looking at this committee and the structure of the committee and the efforts of the committee, where it was a year ago compared to where it is today, the three of you have done amazing work. So I really thank you all for moving this forward, because it's nice to see something operate the way that it should. And I'm looking forward to working with you guys this year on it.
Here, here.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
All right, now, Alan.
Just, Dan, the select board's getting a advisory committee, a business advisory committee for the budget?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, you're not aware of that. That's been stated
No,
several
I'm
times.
well aware.
We're gathering names.
My point
and
is-
Such.
I would think one of those board members, volunteers, might be valuable on this CIP committee.
I mean, I do have an
maybe.
extensive business background, so
that's
in
fine.
planning, but yes, I agree, like for again, next year, like those are the kind of
Right.
people that you
I'm
wanna
not
tap
saying-
in.
Yeah, and we've talked about a lot of things that, you know, we want to present these things kind of together. We've talked about going quarterly to the trustee of the trust. So we're talking about a lot of that, and we're gonna come back with recommendation on what we think we should do, including composition of the.
Okay.
Yeah,
And it also should be that there's nothing wrong with having a member of the public included in this. That's not my statement. My statement is that the way the RSAs are written, the constitution of the CIP committee is a planning board constituent, and what's called the management committee or the governing body of the town. That those are the constituents of the CIP committee. And that's the direction that the RSA is using. So yes,
Just a
it can,
thought as a way to bridge the gap, right, as we go through what is roughly a transition period.
Mhm.
The agenda I know is shared with this team. And I believe the agenda is posted on the town website, correct?
yes,
Okay. It may be worth it to post the agenda of these meetings in advance in other places, whether it's hard copies or to notify the public of the agenda, because that would be a way to bridge it during this transition. So people can see, oh, these are the topics I'm interested in, that I want to be there.
Yeah.
And then that could also potentially let you know if you're seeing consistent individuals who might be good for that committee next year.
Yeah.
So there could be benefit to posting the agenda
Yeah.
So,
in more places. Oops.
yeah, so I'd say we're, even though we don't have to, because we're not a quorum, we've made the decision that we will post the agenda. Thank you, Morgan, meeting minutes. And we are now gonna include YouTube
Okay.
for it. I don't know, can we actually post it anywhere else, or because we want to keep everything going towards the town website? Or I don't know.
Select board meetings are posted at the post office if you're in town hall.
Yeah, I was also
Okay,
maybe
let's do it.
thinking the rec department, you know, just like the 3 key spots where you have a lot of the traffic from the town,
I mean,
so.
the members of the
Good point.
CIP and Steve are aware of how I feel about the bi-monthly meeting that Tim runs, and I think it would be a great opportunity for us to say, this is what we're doing. This is the
Come
date.
join us.
Leave it at that.
Yes.
I agree with, yeah, keeping it very fact-based as far
Yeah.
as.
Yeah,
like,
don't invite
It's not a
discussion.
discussion on that kind of a forum. I haven't reflect, but yes, but like our next meeting is this time. It's just like one more group of people to
Right.
say, you can come in. And please look at the agendas posted on wherever.
Yeah,
Go to the
But
post office and
just,
see it.
that's it, just, hey, that's it.
Yeah, I
The
think that-
Discussion.
that's a great idea, and adding maybe the rec department to that, so noted. And yeah, in that meeting, we couldn't really discuss any
No.
content. But as he tries to hand off, because he's always trying to get people to interact more, is just say, yep, Rob Wilson, CIP, we're gonna have we have a meeting, this is
Yep.
gonna be the agenda, this is the way that you can attend or view on YouTube. And I think we wouldn't want to go into, but just
No, yeah,
bringing light to it, it's a great idea.
okay, Rob.
We're done.
It's time for your
Yeah.
copy
Let's move
line.
on.
that was
Let's-
my fault.
Yeah, next agenda item.
Attaboy, Rob, I like.
I've been trying.
No, I think this has been very good and useful discussion to talk about the CIP. All right, now, there are 2 other committees. One is the landscaping committee.
Yep, so we're meeting after this meeting, that's why.
Okay, good, that's what I wanted to
And
say.
so, yeah, so, and it's Kelly Cannon, Liz, John, Racine and I, and so hopefully then by next meeting, we'll kind of have some, rough ideas.
I have a
Good.
spreadsheet created. I forgot to make copies, so I was gonna email it over to Lee. to have it printed
Yes, and to-
out so that we can kind of walk through them. I looked at Durham, Hanover and Wilton. And I think it's going to be pieces that we pull from each. Because there's a lot of things that are already created, so. if we could just
Don't need to
pull
reinvent
one,
the wheel.
Beautiful, yeah.
Okay, I'll avoid in the future using the word committee and use the term working group. Just so that we never step on that problem of forums. And there's also another committee, there's an architectural balance committee. John, do you have a word to say about it?
Anna sent us some awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And I honestly have not had a chance to read through it. But what I see so far is a lot of awesome information that we can pull a plug right into our ordinance and site plan regs right off the bat, so.
Do we want to, can you post it up and then we could just quickly,
I don't know, did that have access?
I sent you, I mean, if you wanna
Oh, like.
come in on Zoom, I can make you a co-host with that.
So, John, I did, yeah, and I can kind of walk everybody through the draft I pulled together, and I do already have John's red lines, but just some context on this. So John and I did meet a few weeks ago. roughed out some ideas where the focal points wanted to be, what we wanted to clarify, make more specific, build out kind of sections of the ordinance itself. Then I took that information, pulled the New Hampshire RSAs applicable to it, pulled local, similar town ordinances, and compiled that into basically a proposal of an ordinance, which is what I sent to John and Liz. And John has already given me his feedback and red lines, and Liz is going to review and do the same. And then we'll meet again to go through it. So that's kind of where we're at on that one.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
It's a full 4 pages already.
Oh, my.
I write too much.
No,
I'll just
no,
put
it
that
was
disclaimer out there.
I just didn't know if you wanted to kind of go through some of the salient points or. That's what I was asking Liz if she can bring it up.
Yep, that's what I'm.
Are you ready, Rob?
Time to move on to. the-
Okay, now we're gonna move on to Adventure Zone precedent and
Oh, yeah.
possible
It's up there
conditions,
now.
construction management. Yes,
Sliding bed.
we're moving on.
So Bill, can we carve out maybe time at the next meeting to rough through, because then I'll have all the red lines pulled together
Definitely.
as well.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
each of these working groups are, an essential part of the planning board's activity. And we'll want to hear from the working groups each meeting. We'll try to get the progress going. And what's the final result? The final result is it's the possibility that these will turn into ordinance. As we learn from our
That's kind of the
experiences
goal of
that
this, yeah.
unless it's an ordinance, it's not applicable to any of the things that come before the planning board. Unless it's an ordinance, it's not going to be upheld. Okay,
Thanks.
so let's talk about conditions, construction management. Dave, do we have a schedule of items to be completed? That is there a construction schedule available to us for the adventure?
So right now, we got a building permit application. With that building permit application was a number of plans. There were several things that were missing, along with some of the conditions that the planning board has set. We are working with the developer to get those things done. The biggest one being the performance bond. The performance bond was submitted. It was reviewed by the town attorney and sent back with just a couple changes to the language of the performance bond. I have not gotten that back yet in order to share that. Once we do that, as far as everything else is concerned on our end, we are going to allow them to do site work but there's no construction that's going to happen until we receive all the rest of the building plans to move forward. So we're going to look at it as a phased approach. So until the planning board conditions are met, moving forward there's been no permits issued at this time.
Okay, what is the phased approach?
Phased approach is I'm going to allow them to do site work. When they're ready to start building and putting foundations, up until that point, until I get all the plans that I need in order to sign off on it. When they do that, then they will be issued a building permit for whatever particular phase. So I don't have plans for a mini golf course. I don't have plans for a maze. I don't have plans for an aerial course. So none of that is going to be considered currently as part of this project. The only thing that I'm going to allow is the things that are complete.
Yeah, Catherine.
Okay, so just to be clear, because I don't necessarily understand all this. So right now, so condition precedent number 6 is the applicant shall obtain and submit copies of all required state and federal permits or approvals prior to the issuance of a building permit. So what you're saying is that the performance bond is the only thing missing, or what else is missing?
So the performance bond is missing for them to start site work.
Okay.
Okay, in order for them to start building, I need all the rest of the plans. Required plans for us to sign off on the building plans,
So
on the
the,
site plan review.
so this federal and state permits are not required then for site work? To begin?
Not unless
There's
there's-
nothing that has to do with the federal property and really there's nothing to do with the state either. It's all us.
Got it.
So
Hey, Dave. I know Morgan had a note on the agenda about Tyrell Development has to provide proof of right to use easements for the adventure zone for parking. Is that part of the select board requirements you were talking about?
So I just got an update actually yesterday.
Oh, yep.
I emailed James yesterday and he got back to me. His attorney has drafted a document. And they're in final review now. It will be sent to the town. And then the town will review the easement and then they'll have discussions. So it is.
Got it. Okay.
And then one more, who's the project representative?
I think the answer is over here with James.
The official, the construction schedule?
Yeah, so our project representative is Marissa Preston. She's the construction manager for the resort, and she will be the construction manager for this project. And Dave has that information. But yeah, the easement we drafted, as everyone is aware, there are numerous easements over the years that overlap on these things. We are just double checking what we have drafted against all of those to make sure we haven't missed anything that needs to be factored into that. So we're finishing that review. We'll get that draft, but that's not a precedent condition. So we were working on other things first. The performance bond we've supplied in the same form that we did for when the Green Peak development was done. So it was the same form, but Dave got back to me and said the town attorney asked us to add a few specific language things to that. So the performance bond has been issued. We're asking for an update to the language on the printed form of the performance bond, but the performance bond has been issued and we gave a copy of that to the town. There are no state and federal, for this particular project, there's no state or federal permits that are required. There's no wetlands permitting or alteration of terrain required under this site plan. So therefore there are no state and federal permits to be issued. For that. And with regards to the phased approach, the reason for that is that, I mean, unlike say with a home building project where you don't need a site plan review, final engineering on aspects of this had to wait until we had a site plan approval, because if we had to modify the engineered plans, we needed to know that before we could have final engineering done on, say, footings and foundations. If we had to move something because of the site plan, we couldn't have engineered something, or it wouldn't make sense. It would be a very significant expense ahead of time to do final engineering. So all of those things are in final engineering, and we discussed with Dave doing the survey. So for example, in the building, like electrical and mechanical and fire suppression systems, right? We had to wait till we knew what the building approval was before we could have those systems engineered. So those are the plans we have preliminaries of, but not finals. So you know, the building permit won't be issued till we have the finals, but as Dave said, we've given him we have supplied him with all the preliminary plans we have, and we will provide the final plans as soon as those become available, which should be over the next, several weeks. And so that's why, but for a site work example, the performance bond is needed. We won't get a permit for doing any foundations or footings until we have the engineered plans for those things. So that's the way we are taking this approach, which I think, as Dave mentioned in a previous meeting to the select board, is not uncommon with commercial projects versus, say, residential.
Quick question on the state federal permitting, only because I'm learning this stuff still. There's a lot out there. Yeah. So because it is my understanding the resort owns down to the water line, is that accurate?
Technically not the resort. Tyrell
Development does.
To the
Okay.
shoreline, yes.
Okay, so that is then, I would imagine, some sort of state easement somewhere in there, but then I know, no? There
This-
isn't,
the-
okay.
Not on this pond.
That's what I'm trying to figure
it's
out, because I'm
man-made.
used to
Pond-
easements,
Pond's
because
man-made.
it's man-made,
falls
okay.
Below the size for, to be covered under the shoreline protection.
Interesting,
statute.
okay, okay.
I believe it's 10 acres.
10 acres.
It
and,
has to, body of water has,
water.
or running water, a body of water has to be at least 10 acres for
Okay.
shoreline protection
I
statute
think
to
it's
apply.
about this one, 3-4 acres.
I think it's 4.5 or something.
Okay,
It's
okay.
less
No,
than five.
that's good to know. That's what I was curious about. Thank you.
The other state one, alteration of terrain would apply if you're disturbing more than 150,000 square
Right.
feet, which would be 3 acres or so, which is not
Which
here.
is not the project,
And
so, yep.
We're not, there's no federal wetlands disturbances or anything like that
Right.
going on. So
Okay.
That's where federal would come.
Got it.
Okay, Margaret,
But I think, aren't there state regulations with regard to the aerial tramway? And is that something that comes along later?
Yeah, well, the
Yeah, later
tramway, the
phase.
tramway would have supervision over the erection and use of the aerial course. But they would come in and supervise that when it's being erected, not at this stage. There's nothing they issue ahead of time for that. There's no permit to be issued by the state to erect it. They just would be in charge of safety and supervision of that.
In order to,
Yeah, in order to operate it.
okay, my question is, what is the value of the performance bond?
$200,000, which is actually about twice what the performance bond is intended to cover completion of utilities. Should that project not be completed, and that's about double what we're estimating the cost of utility. We're talking about sewer hookup, burying the electrical to the site, sewer and water hookups. Those are the only infrastructure that need to be covered by the performance bond.
Right. Okay, I agree with that. Yeah, performance bonds usually cover, at least for this stage of the project, stormwater, drainage infrastructure, erosions, utility and infrastructure and the hookups, restoration of disturbance areas and general site cleanup, and off-site public improvements required as part of the approval, that sort of
The
stuff.
language in the site plan, the condition that was cited for this, we use that language with the performance bond company to give them the scope of what it needed to cover.
So what I want to know is how was the number derived? That is the 200,000 that you mentioned?
Estimates from our construction supervisor who has developed the budget for the project and her experience in developing construction, many years of construction projects.
Not questioning that. I'm just saying that, yes, it's generally from the estimates of the.
Yes. it's
Dave, do you
construction
have all that
estimate.
information?
I do.
Okay.
Bill?
Yes.
Hey, Dave, can I ask you a question? If they complete the aerial course, are you allowed to approve that for what we call occupancy before they complete the building? Or is it all or none?
So every structure, every building on there will get its own separate occupancy permit. They'll have a final inspection for each piece of that. So we're gonna treat every component of the project as its own piece.
I guess my question would be, and this is just being nitpicky, can it be a provisional occupancy permit in case something happens with the building? Because we approved everything, not pieces. And I don't want them to say we ran out of money in the middle, but we have our occupancy permit for the aerial course, we'll let that run.
I don't think that can be legally done. Saying, okay, yeah, you finished your aerial course, you got your CO, but you can't operate it because the building's not done. I don't think you could legally do that.
Because we approved it all and you can't go piece by piece, but this is piece by piece for the permit.
Right, yeah, that's a whole.
'Cause they all have
permitting
different-
Process separate from a full approval from the board.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Good question. though.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it's not exactly
You
the,
don't look happy.
No, I.
And you always look happy.
the
Yeah,
planning.
the building permit process and the inspection process are very different from how the planning board operates. The practicality of what we do every day is, there are different phases of these projects. We look at each of these pieces. We conduct inspections, and then when it's completed, to the plan, they get a final inspection, and upon successful completion of the final inspection, which we have added to our final inspection status is, are all the provisions of the planning board have been met. So it allows us, it gives us a prompt to know that we need to review those provisions before we issue an occupancy permit, that everything has been completed. If that answers the question. That
Circle.
Yeah.
Because then it links back to
Quick
the
question
plan.
here, with respect to the entirety of the project, there are aspects of it that are common to the buildings and the different venues, if you will, such as all the pathing and
Walkways.
walkways, and safety concerns and all of that.
Of course.
So how is that going to be addressed with respect to the occupancy permits?
Well, the project's gonna get, you know, a final inspection, the building permit itself, there are conditions, so take, the villas across the street. Every building in the condominium has been sold and every unit has been issued an occupancy permit. That building permit is not closed yet. There are certain conditions that still need to be met. So the building permit itself to the original developer still remains open for them to, just because they sold all the units, the building construction is complete, doesn't mean that the building permit has been closed out. So
That isn't my question. My question is, for instance, we put up the, I don't know what you call it. The aerial
Sky Trail.
course. And so that part's done. That's one component of it of its own sense. But let's say that none of the pathing, none of the safety issues with respect to being able to get fire trucks in and stuff like that, and ambulances have been taken care of yet. How does all that come to play with respect to the occupancy permit issue? We've talked about, you know, building the building separately and the miniature golf course separately. So you
if the
kind of
major
have to have,
components and the
there's,
conditions are not met, they don't get an occupancy permit.
what was that?
If the major components of and the conditions of the project are not met, they don't get an occupancy permit.
So if there is no access, there would be no CO granted.
That, right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Okay, so then when you're issuing the,
There you go.
just let me understand this because I'm learning too. Along with Hannah.
There's a lot.
When you get a permit application for the aerials course, for instance, are you taking steps to ensure that that permit also includes the creation of all the pathing and so forth that are needed?
yes, it's part of the project, so we're gonna be looking at that. We're not gonna be approving bits and pieces of this project. We're gonna be issuing a permit, but overall, we're gonna be looking at as project completion as the application has been presented. We're gonna be looking at it when we do a final and close out everything. That building permit still remains open until all those conditions have been met.
Yes, I understand that. I'm referring with respect to use and occupancy.
Yeah, we're not gonna allow them to do that unless all the conditions have been met.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question for James. Is there a time limit on the performance bond? That is-
It runs for a year and can be renewed. Dave asked that one of the things he asked was that it automatically renew, for example, that it, after a year, but, I mean, we're required to keep it in place, so if we hit the end of the year and we haven't completed the work that it covers, then we would have to renew it, otherwise we couldn't continue the work.
Yes, that's
We're
essentially,
obligated to keep it in place until the work that it covers is completed.
yes.
Yeah.
And then is there a performance bond that is issued for the balance of the work that is forthcoming? That is, okay, so you do all this site work, and the site work is required to be completed in 2 years. I'm looking at Dave, looking for acknowledgement of that point, but I think that what I read said that the site work needs to be done within 2 years. And that which should be the duration of the performance bond.
Yeah, so, yes, the performance bond will cover anything for safety. Or if it's affecting abutting properties like erosion, drainage, sedimentation. Say if a foundation is poured and it's just left open, then a performance bond is used to cap that foundation. It's for safety, things like that. But yes, they're required to have it for the length of the time until the site is safe, stabilized, and pretty much almost to the point of them getting the CO. If there's aspects of the project that could be considered unsafe if they're not finished.
And we need a release from the town to,
Yep.
to extinguish the bond, so.
Right.
Again, we had that similar with Green Peak, we had a performance bond for all the utility and site work that was being completed, and once that was reached the point where, code enforcement signed off on that, then we got a letter from the town that said they were okay with releasing the bond, which we provided to the bond company.
Anything else?
On the sedimentation, just quick, because we just voted on a bond to deal with the sedimentation in Corcoran Pond, right? We have both a,
Dredging?
CRF.
no, it wasn't dredging, it was,
Not dredging yet.
not
As
yet.
for The
Someone help me out here,
plan
whatever it
is
was.
to
Mitigation.
Upstream mitigation.
Upstream mitigation, thank you.
75 grand.
Thank you. Yeah,
By
so, and then I
altering
know
the
we're also
flows.
putting stuff into the reserve for that. So just talking about when Liz mentioned like corrosion and sedimentation, it made me realize that's near the pond. Not to say that this is gonna disrupt anything in there, but do we have some sort of fail safe that since we are dealing with sedimentation issues already in the pond, James?
We're required to put up erosion controls to
Perfect.
account for all of that.
That's all I was
Those are
curious
before
about.
site work.
Cool, thank you.
Temporary erosion control is,
Okay.
I think the first thing on the, and I can email over, the site plan.
That
set
would
of site
be
plans
great,
we have.
yeah, thank you.
On page 8, it has the whole construction sequence written out.
Perfect.
Next item.
I'm working on it. Yes, okay, we did performance of the. All right, now we can move on to the business of, James, during the Adventure Zone evaluation period, there was a discussion about the select board made a request that the easements be registered as non-exclusive, and the select board asked the question, does the applicant have the legal right to assign the Adventure Zone parking to the east side and west side lots?
Well, yes, that issue arose because the non-exclusive arrangement on the parking during the foreclosure was changed to exclusive. Town Square had the exclusive right to actually use those parking lots, but that is not how they've been treated for the last 25 years since that was done. And so that is what we were talking about earlier, where we have drafted an easement to be recorded that would update that to clarify that is non-exclusive use. That will be signed by both Tyrell and Waterville Valley Resort, which Tyrell is the landowner and the resort as Town Square owner. So Town Square has technically the exclusive use of all those parking lots right now. So we are updating that to clarify to change that back to non-exclusive use, as to use them in the manner that they are currently being utilized.
Does that include what I always call the hockey parking lot?
It incorporates reference to the agreement between the town and from 2011 that gave town the right to use the east side lot for ice arena parking. Those are all incorporated.
You're now saying that is now non-exclusive?
That was always
always
non-exclusive,
non-exclusive,
non-exclusive. There's no.
Okay,
The only exclusivity was granted to Town Square, and then non-exclusive sharing rights were granted on top of that. So this is cleaning up and clarifying. I mean, there's three key, something from 1998, something from 2003, something from 2011, all of which we've incorporated by reference into this latest one. There's other things that go back even further with the Snowy Owl and Black Bear to the 80s and stuff. So that's what we're double checking to make sure we're not putting something in writing now that stomps on something that was done before, the way that has happened over the last.
is there
since the
anything,
90s.
I hate to say this because I haven't read it recently. Is there anything, God help us, in the ice arena lease that talks about their parking?
I
I
don't know
haven't
off the
read-
top of my
I
head.
haven't read.
There's a
it.
2011,
I don't
the
have
ice
the lease
arena
in
parking
front
is
of me right now.
Oh, we got.
Okay, wait a minute, one at a time.
The
I
ice-
had, neither do I.
The ice arena parking is addressed in the 2011 agreement. So that, again, that is incorporated into this, so.
There's an easement, they have an easement for parking, what, snow,
Yeah,
you know, where they push the snow out.
Yeah, out back.
and I think
Ice
and-
chip.
From the
Yeah.
Zamboni.
access
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah,
My
I don't know.
suggestion to
That's
you
all
is we will
together.
provide the draft. You can look at the
Yeah.
reference
Yeah.
documents,
Yeah.
ask questions at that time to make sure.
We'll read it when we have to.
Okay,
just for everyone's sake, the easement situation is rather convoluted, is a
Yes.
good word to
To
use.
say the least.
Oh, that's a soup sandwich.
Well, it's
Like, yeah,
so-
that's a mess.
just trying to keep track of who is doing what to whom in the easement document is rather challenging at times.
Yes.
And our chair did provide us with those easements the last meeting.
Yeah.
And you did.
oh,
And I got it right
I'm,
here.
Yeah, we do
All the
have them.
easements.
I helped stir it, the soup I'm talking about. No, I wanted to know whether the matter that was brought to the evaluation period by the select board, which made reference to, does the applicant have the right to assign the adventure zone parking? Is that what you're addressing?
Yes,
Yes.
and what James just said is they're working
Mhm.
on that document right now to address that. It's basically the left hand giving the right hand
Yes.
approval. There's nothing controversial about that aspect of it. From the select board's perspective, we're just trying to make sure everybody's dotting their i's, crossing their t's, and cleaning up documentation where it wasn't correct before.
What are the rights of all the lessees of the Waterville Valley Ski Resort, who is the leaseor, in their documents to say, do I authorize you to dedicate certain spaces to me or not?
No, it's just open.
It's open.
Yeah.
Okay, I
you're
haven't
allowed
read
to
the
use this-
lease.
Yeah, I believe it's just open because,
Because you can sometimes go to places and the parking lot says, these 5 spaces are for this.
so they might have some
Office.
for Snowy Owl. Snowy Owl might have some signs, but for like the individual businesses in Town Square, they don't have signs for like their businesses.
Okay, I just don't know what the leases say, if they're, I own 4 or 5 spots and I will not,
I don't believe so.
okay.
Well, you can
Okay.
go back and look at.
I'm gonna
our
ask
meetings.
James to address this again because nobody has the right to put up a sign, at least not now. Nobody has the right to put up a sign that says these spots are
I
mine.
know you have, I will try to address this very quickly and
Thank you.
succinctly. If
No,
you
no,
want
no.
More information, I can send you 35 or 50 or 100 pages of. So the parking lots are generally, again, that exclusivity, the non-exclusive was changed to exclusive, but for sake of argument, let's talk about them all as non-exclusive because that's how they've been used and that's how we're trying to record that. The Black Bear has the right to use 160 non-exclusive parking spaces. They're generally the 160 spaces in front of the Black Bear. The Snowy Owl has the right to use 82 spaces non-exclusively. It's generally the 82 spaces in front of the Snowy Owl. Town Square has the right to use basically all of the parking spaces on a non-exclusive basis, including the ones in front of the Black Bear and the Snowy Owl. So if a customer of Town Square parked in front of the Snowy Owl, they have that right to do. There's no designated spots for anywhere. The town has an easement to allow ice arena parking in the lot next to the ice arena. But it's non-exclusive. None of these spaces are reserved exclusively. And they are on a shared basis. And that's how all of these deeds are. Tenants in Town Square, through their landlord, Town Square, the employees and customers of the businesses within Town Square have the right to use those parking lots on a non-exclusive basis because their landlord, Town Square, has that right.
Okay, now, somebody said something? You want the floor? No.
25 minutes.
Okay,
Good.
well, look, I have something to say about the Town Square study that was done by Liz demonstrates how much parking is required by the ordinance. There is an ordinance that calculates that the Town Square parking demand is 385 parking spaces.
Estimation,
Yeah, okay, but that's,
Yep.
yeah,
but yes,
nobody has any firm, absolute calculated, without any variation numbers on parking.
not unless I go and measure every.
Okay, so I just wanted to make reference to the fact that that Liz's study, we're calling it the Town Square study, was done. And that the estimate was 385 parking spaces, which must be satisfied by the west side lot. The Adventure Zone demands another 120. That is, it was originally calculated at 160 and was later discounted to 120. So the total demand on the west side lot is 120 and another 385, which is 505. Now, I should give you a preamble right away that, we're not trying to do this again. The Adventure Zone has been approved and that's water under the bridge. But what I'm trying to get to is that we still have a parking problem. And that the capacity of the west side lot is 170. So the ordinance calculation demand plus the Adventure Zone estimated demand of 120 and what is done by Liz's Town Square study is 355. I'm sorry, the capacity of the west side lot is only 170. We're not talking about the 540 spaces mentioned in the parking study, which is the total available on the Tyrell property. And that's not pertinent. What I'm trying to get to is that there is the west side lot demand, and you add to that the ice arena. The conclusion is that we're going to have some kind of parking problems in the future. That is, there's enough demand to exceed what's there.
Are those updated numbers? Because you're quoting a lot of numbers. And I just want to make.
Yes, what I did-
With the change.
Yes.
Of the 139 to 33.
Oh.
We took
And
the
this is
106
just
out.
so that we can get an idea for future uses, and like, what will we need to do? What can the town do? And so this is to look at shared parking, in our ordinance and, site plan regs, the parking allocations per use. So, that's where we're headed with this, is that we need to look at parking regulations.
It won't go away. It'll always be with us.
So we're
Parking.
gonna create a parking working group.
It's already done.
We did that in our last meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
We
what
did
I'm
that in
doing
our
is I'm
last
reading you
meeting.
to the evidence.
Yes.
That what was uncovered by the working group. Who's on
So-
that working group? I know I'm on the working group.
Liz,
Anyway, my other partner is Liz, yeah.
Let's understand.
Alan, you and I.
Alan was, Alan's part of this, yeah.
Group updates.
He disappeared at the right time.
Let's understand something. Realistically. When we go down and look at parking. There are parking issues. Not every weekend.
That's obvious.
What?
agreed. It's very ebb and flow, and that's what I was gonna
It's
say.
very-
So
Right.
If you go out there
It's
now, the
also
parking lots are
seasonally
empty.
driven.
I walked down
Dead
last
right now.
weekend with the magnificent Tina, and we had Millie, the wonder dog, who was babysitting. So we walked.
I don't care about this. What are you trying to
There
tell
was
us?
nobody there.
Yeah.
All right?
No, I mean,
If there were
honestly, it's
five
most
cars-
crazy.
five Cars in the parking lot, it was a lot.
It's most crazy hockey and ski weekends when you have those combined,
Well,
which is that Friday and Saturday. Not,
And some summer weekends,
and
like
some, yeah, like July 4th
July
weekend.
4th.
Yeah.
Chowder
Fair.
Fest.
Chocolate Fest.
Oh, yeah,
Chocolate
chocolate
fest.
fest.
Okay, what's the
Chili.
point? What are you
But,
trying to do
okay,
with this?
So,
Well, so then I'll let Mike finish, because then I have a question, because I was thinking the same direction you are, but I'll see if our questions are
well,
the same.
the question is, you know, we're talking about a parking issue that occurs only on weekends and probably 10 or 12 weekends a year.
But what's the point? So what?
So the question that we have is, building a parking lot is not inexpensive.
The parking
That's
group,
the issue.
the parking group is working on that matter.
Regulations and ordinances.
Yeah.
Right.
Which
For-
was
for
gonna
going
then be
forward.
my
We're
question.
not gonna solve it here.
Right, so that Liz, in the last voting we just did, there was a change as to how far a parking lot could be from the access point. Is that accurate?
It's a starting point.
Starting point, okay. So my question is, spitballing. My question is, knowing James is here, during the summer, we've got multiple parking lots sitting off of Triple I Road that are empty, right? Right now.
Yeah.
That might change, but right now. And we do still have the shuttles and trolleys, right? So
Maybe.
if we're just,
No.
maybe, okay. If we're just talking about specific events for the short term, not long term, but for the short term, before all of the master plans get to full action, could we perhaps work with the resort to leverage those lots, or is that gonna be a
They're
break
more
of that ordinance?
They've always.
We already do that.
Yeah,
When there are events going
Cool.
on where we know the town is gonna be flooded, we already arrange
See, I
for
walked, so I
alternative
didn't know.
parking at the conference center or at the
Yes.
mountain
Right.
and do
Yeah.
shuttle buses.
Cool.
And that's in your ordinance, that
Yep.
you're allowed to provide,
Yeah.
allow for flexible parking plans or alternative parking arrangements. That's already in your
Okay.
ordinance to allow for that.
So at least in the immediate, thank you, James, at
Right.
least in the immediate, we are covered. And then as we keep going into next stages of the town master plan and the resort master plan, then, and I believe, James, if I recall, in your resort master plan, there is actually parking plans down the road, specifically tied to the Chandala.
Right behind you.
Right, yeah, the garage.
On the wall.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. So I'm like, I feel like I read through that in your master plan, but okay. Okay, no, I was just curious.
Let
So,
me just wrap this up because
Yes.
you're creating a working group to look at parking things going forward, moving
Okay.
forward. So when you're ready to present something from your working group, is that like, let's move on to the next topic.
Right.
Yep.
What I want to put on the table is, should we be looking at the strengths and weaknesses, the benefits and the costs of shared parking? We need to
Your
bring
plan
that
says
to the
yes.
table and debate it. That's where I'm going with
I
this.
think your working
But the
group
working
needs-
group
needs
will
to-
bring
And
things
that will
to
happen.
us, okay?
cool.
So wait, the working group has two questions.
Yes, and I would
Sorry.
I'm going to point to Alan now to say, you brought up a point earlier and I want to hear about it.
Which point was that? Let me do my two.
Okay, let me do your
What is-
thing.
How does the board feel about when you allocate parking? Taking into consideration some things are seasonal, like the amusement center doesn't work the same time as the
Hockey.
ski area works,
Yeah.
you know? Our ordinance doesn't allow for us to accommodate seasonal parking.
Yes, it does.
We made a decision
Go ahead.
on our own that, okay, we can rationalize that that's how it should work.
Yeah.
But the question is, do we want an ordinance that allows it? Okay, the second part, I'm sorry. What do we do if there's a material error in documents that we use to make a decision? For example, the parking study had the wrong number of condos, which worked against the applicant, but still it was an error. The second part was an omission. It didn't include the fact that the ski area offers for lack of a different term, parking in town square and shuttle to the mountain. That was never accounted for in the parking study.
So when I calculated those numbers, I just went from the board asking what the current uses in town square use, or what they would require based on our regulations. And that was to tie it back to, do our regulations need to change? So, yes, the condos was an error, but the omission of the multi-use, that wasn't part of the question when I was asked to find what are the uses in town square? What do they require for parking?
Okay, so-
It's not a study, it was just an estimation of, well, how many do they need currently?
So to answer your question, I mean, my opinion, we can go around really, what people think, but yes, I think that it should be considered seasonal, issues, and in conjunction with what are other towns doing in that same situation? We have a lot of seasonal towns here, so I think that would be, and then the second question is, when you find, it happens, so when you find something, you correct it and you remedy it, the best you can, and, so we didn't think about something, let's reconsider that again. I mean, things are fluid, so that would be my opinion. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but.
I agree, and I think the parking working group would be there to bring a suggestion to the board and say, here's how we think it should be, and then we can kind of vote on it.
Agreed.
We're gonna do that.
All right, that's fair enough. Where we are is that when we were doing the analysis, the ordinances are already there to do a specific parking analysis. And they were there when we were supposed to be reviewing this several months ago. And the analysis also pointed out there's a over-reliance on expert opinion that leads the board to bypass other facts that may be already in the ordinances. So we will, Alan and I plus Liz, will continue to work on whether or not we should be reviewing the shared parking ordinance provisions that are already there. Should we have shared parking or not? I think that's one of the critical issues. Okay. Ready?
Is the parking group gonna be on that every meeting update?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we'll keep beating on this until we think we've arrived at a solution. Are you ready, Rob? Give me your line.
13 minutes.
No, you're not, you're not.
I like the time.
Back to the light.
Rob, I point to you because I expect a line like as if you were the anchor on the news. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Okay, that was the parking group report. I'd like to talk about Golden Heights, and I'd like John Racine to have something to say about it.
Okay, thank you. So here's the story with Golden Heights. Is when I was the board was going through that a few years back, we had conditions on things, and one of the things was the landscaping and plowing of snow. They were not to push the snow across the street. They were supposed to remove it across the street. DPW was supposed to inspect that and get back to us and let us know if that was being done so we could take an action plan on it. I think we've only heard from DPW once in regards to that, unless the chief knows something I don't know. Also, the vegetation in the front. Now, a lot of the people in the Moose Run were upset because the parking area for 6 vehicles, I believe it was called an apron area, was supposed to have some kind of a screening for the cars. And the landscaper, I specifically remember talking to him at the meeting saying, please remember that we're in New England and we need plants that will survive New England weather. And I thought that the bushes were supposed to be 3 or 4 feet tall to screen the vehicles there. So they're not. They're pathetic little things, if you will. But anyways, I had a condition list, and maybe, Morgan, could you read that? By the way, this does go right in line with what Morgan was talking about much earlier with her committee.
Yeah. So it says Golden Heights landscaping conditions. The intent is to screen parked vehicles within the 6-vehicle apron area in front of Golden Heights condos, along with shrubs to shield most of the parked vehicles' line of sight from Valley Road. The height of the shrubs should be 3 to 4 feet. Conditions subsequent plantings will be native vegetation appropriate for the climate and local conditions. 2, including maintaining and replacing plantings as needed in homeowner association documents. 3, the proposed plan moves snow storage to the east side of Golden Heights Road. The DPW agrees to allow this change if snow is removed from the site and carried across the road and is kept clear of the drainage ditch on the east side of Golden Heights Road. Keeping the drainage ditch on the southeast side is critical, especially during the spring. 4, proposed vegetation such as trees in this area will have to be placed and maintained so that they do not interfere with the proper operation of the drainage ditch. 5, staff would like to have a condition of approval that the snow storage arrangement be subject to review and modified if there are issues with ice buildup or runoff outside the ditch. The review should be conducted at a minimum by the Department of Public Works, road agent, and the developer. Other staff could be involved if necessary. DPW will provide the planning board with a written report on how the arrangement has worked and if any modifications are necessary. This report is to be presented to the planning board at the next meeting in May, which was 2024. The building footprint and associated improvements as necessary may vary by up to 10% without planning board approval.
Chief, can you tell us if we've had any snow and ice problems at the Golden Heights project?
Jonathan's been working directly with Megan, the Director of Public Works, with that. He actually just had a meeting with her this week. We had a meeting with him this week, to finalize. We gave him the conditions for closing out the building permit, which includes, cleaning up some of the landscaping. He's got a signpost he's waiting for, the Adventure, Center, the resort to give him some, lead on. I'll look at the trees that are there, but he's basically got till July 15th to make all the landscaping changes. Of course, we're just waiting for the snow to melt for him to be able to do that.
Okay, who's Jonathan? He's the project manager? Is he the owner?
Yes, he's the owner.
Okay, what the original, and one of the complaints that John just and Morgan read was that the trees are supposed to be 3 to 4 feet high. There may be a foot. The ones that are to screen the cars in the parking apron. What can we do about it?
What kind of plantings are there? What kind of shrubs?
I think they're little mountain laurels. I think that's what they are.
Arborvitaes.
Maybe, they're not arborvitaes, they're.
Arborvitaes, being told.
Are they?
Yeah.
All right, they're not tall enough. Is there anything we can do about it?
Well, if they don't, so was there a time limit for the 3 to 4 feet? Or what, did the conditions say that it had to be planted at 3 to 4 feet tall?
They were to shield the vehicles in that apron area.
Was there a time limit on that though? So it has to shield those within a year, or they have to be planted at 3 to 4 feet tall, or do arborvitaes, they grow to be huge. So in however fast they grow, they'll hit that 3 to 4 mark. And that's why I asked about a timeline. So is there a restriction or anything in the condition saying they must be planted at 3 to 4 feet tall, or they must be 3 to 4 feet tall within 5 years?
No. So the conditions
No.
do not mention a height or a timeline other than the timeline for the plowing.
There's another good example of why details in the ordinance have to be specific. Very
So-
specific.
Follow-up question on that. Did I hear at the last meeting you mentioned that Golden Heights is no longer part of that HOA?
Yes,
They were supposed to be part of it and now
That's
they're not.
correct.
Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. So within the within the requirements, the subsequent conditions that were given to them, it also stated being in compliant with the HOA vegetation. When you then are no longer part of an HOA, what does that do to that condition?
Great question.
I think they're their own HOA.
Yeah.
They are.
That is,
The villas have their own HOA.
so what I remember is that, Moose Run disavowed any knowledge of of the Golden Heights project, yeah.
Okay,
But that, if their HOA still has that blocking that view, and that is a condition for them to have the building permit
Right.
finalized. As I understand it, that building permit cannot be finalized until those shrubs,
Conditions are met.
whatever, that are 3 to 4 feet high.
well, if you're now.
I would guess I'd be looking for some direction from the planning board. Are you willing to let the plants grow, or do you want me to make them put trees in that are tall enough?
One tree so it's tall enough.
I mean, it's a super gray area though, because technically that wasn't required of
I would
them.
wanna check with legal on that one.
Yeah,
I would too.
Yeah,
yeah.
In other words, it would turn into a legal fight.
yes, because, and the
Mhm.
planning board, I haven't seen it yet. They don't reopen previous approvals. So, and to change conditions, they can, if an applicant requests to amend a condition, that can be done. But, to make it more restrictive, I would definitely want to check with legal first.
Dave, have you spoken to them about the height of the plants or little bushes that are there? And the need to be
I-
screening the vehicles?
I have not. I
That's
know
a-
that the bushes have been planted where the plan was presented. I did not pay attention to the height, knowing that those will grow. And that the condition was that if any of them didn't survive because he planted them kind of late in the season, he was gonna replace them this spring.
Are there sufficient bushes there such that when they do grow, all of the vehicles would be screened appropriately?
Good question.
I believe,
That's-
so, yes.
It looks to me like they're
Yeah.
spaced out
Yes,
quite a bit from each other. I
And
mean,
they-
it's not that it's unattractive, it's that it's not fulfilling the need to screen the vehicles that would be parked there.
Unless their growth
Well,
pattern is a
right.
5 foot wide span, and that's why they're spaced out. So that when they do grow, they grow into. a
They'll hit
cohesive
that 5x3
shield.
requirement.
So
yeah, but
that's
That's-
why I was wondering what the type of planting it was, so that we could see what it looks like when it's mature and how long it takes for it to mature.
Can we find that out? Dave, can we ask John that, the owner, what bushes he actually planted?
Is it in the landscape?
Arborvitae's. Yeah,
It
we
is
can double check with that. Yeah,
50 feet tall.
I would revise that to say that simply ask him to, rather than demand it, ask him to replace those bushes with, bushes that are suitable for screening the parked cars,
Immediately.
and to do it now.
Correct.
If we ask him to do it, he might agree to do it.
We might, but if he says no, then what?
I think
That's
it's
it.
good to be
And then
armed
we go to
with the
the
legal
plan.
knowledge before we even make the ask. I would say from my contracts world, knowing what your legal standing is before you even make the nice question is better. So
Okay.
I'd be more comfortable knowing from Liz what ground we actually have stand on here.
I'm
Know exactly
suspicious
what
of,
we said,
yeah, I'm suspicious of the response.
Yeah, I have the
Yeah.
conditions right here.
what did we actually say?
Conditions precedent, replace the split rail fence shown on the plan with an evergreen vegetation screen for the length of the 6 parking spaces that will be pruned as needed to keep free of the multi-use path. Revise the plan to show additional deciduous trees and a mix of evergreens and deciduous vegetation in the snow storage area between the parking area and the trail.
But wait a minute, the key there is, as you said it, replace the split rail fence,
With an
Where?
evergreen vegetation screen.
evergreen vegetation to screen.
Evergreen vegetation screen.
Screen.
So that means that the way I would anticipate that wording, it says that split rail fence comes out, screening goes in. But
But I could argue that
I
if
just-
in
I-
3 years from now, the screen will be there.
I can argue, and I have.
Yeah,
Both sides of any story.
yep,
We've all done it. However, I think that if you go and speak to any attorney, they're gonna say it's not definitive.
Yeah,
yeah.
And that's why I'm recommending that we change the ordinance such that it is very definitive.
Understand,
future,
but
because it wouldn't
I'm not
affect it.
concerned with the future, I'm concerned with
I
that
know.
one that really nasty.
I get it.
Here's we have nothing.
And
We're trying to do something about it. Yes.
I think our hammer is we ask chief not to give him his occupancy permit.
But you have to have legal right to stand on
Yeah.
that.
Oh, we do.
We do, it's not a 3 foot.
There's nothing in here that says.
Wait a
three
minute.
feet.
That's what
Because
you read.
it says that it has supposed to be screening.
Yes,
And because it says there has to be screening, code enforcement is not gonna issue a final release of the building permit until it is properly screened with 3 to 4 foot.
Let's just ask them.
3 to 4 foot is
I-
the suggestion. It said it should be, and that was not in the actual
It
conditions.
wasn't in the ordinance.
The screening.
Says screening, but no height.
Or how
Screening
quick
means
that
you
has to, right,
Which
Right.
is fine.
but how quick it has to be done.
I
So
understand.
he doesn't get it till it's done growing. That's when this.
Well, and I mean, maybe just the building permit ends up staying open for like 4 years, which is.
Exactly.
a little
Okay, folks, we're at the
but-
point now where we're gonna
anyways.
say,
Yeah.
no, time out. Liz,
Yes.
you're gonna contact council and obtain an answer.
I
that-
have to request, the select board to reach out to legal counsel to spend funding for that, spend the funds, so, I'll ask the select. board
Okay,
if I
let's
can-
get this done as soon as we can, so that we don't hold up chief and his okay, good. Is that concluded?
What?
No more discussions about that?
Full level.
I
I'm gonna
pushed to
take it.
11:15, so.
Yeah, we're moving on here. Right, Rob?
Yep.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted to say is that there is a revised handbook available from the New Hampshire Business and Economic Affairs.
Mhm.
I recommend that we download it and use it. There is also a seminar from, I think it's called OPD.
Mhm.
Office of Planning.
Office and Planning and Development. And it's on, I think, the 16th. And it's from, I know it's on the 16th. Recommended that you attend the webinar. And because it's at this time of the year where after new planning board members are appointed, that the OPD is doing this seminar is says, okay, you're a board member now, what next? In other words, it's a very good training seminar for anybody who has years of experience with the planning board. So I recommend that you sign up for that and attend it. It's a online service. Also, the Waterville Valley zoning ordinance book has been amended from the changes that occurred at town meeting. And Liz is working on it. I know there were a couple of things that made some mention of headings.
Yep.
Okay, and that's done. So what I want to know is how many people here want a paper copy? And
The ordinance?
yeah, I want a book.
I would like one. Great, perfect.
Okay,
They're revised.
do you want a paper copy? Yes. Alan?
Three a whole bunch if we
Give me a final count.
Everybody raise your hand if you
Raise your
want it.
hand. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yes, okay.
Can we get those?
You want
three
one?
hole punched?
I've got it
No,
electronically.
I'm
Okay.
I should be for
Okay.
that.
Where I live.
I'm kidding.
It's okay with me. Look, this is the next generation.
I'm excited. I have a book and I got my phone.
Yeah, no, they,
Alright. So
you,
this
you guys over here.
Unfortunately, Glued to my face.
Two different animals over here this side of the
I'll
table.
get all printed in a whole bunch and swing by the office. Or I'll
Thank
bring it
you.
to the next meeting, whatever works.
Yeah.
You know, I come here with all this paper and that it's helpful to me. Otherwise I could have a computer screen here. I could do, never mind.
It's good.
Never mind. All right.
Oh, at home I've got like three. I guess, so that's a little different.
I'm gonna defer the master plan review. Look, we're 10 to 11, right?
Yeah, I pushed her to 11.
Okay, so we got 10 minutes left.
We've got 10
Just keep
minutes.
moving.
Got 10 minutes, my God, what am I gonna do for 10 minutes? I'm gonna ask the select board for a report.
But you did skip over pickleball court.
Yeah.
That was any,
Oh, you wanna talk about that?
If you
Okay,
want to.
yeah, that,
or we can do it next time.
no, the only,
Man, you're better than that.
This voice is-
I think the only thing that we could chew on with respect to the pickleball courts is the fence that was
Right.
proposed and that,
But
We're
noise
not
support
done
it,
with
so.
the vote.
and what does Chief Noyes have to say about this?
Maybe.
Chief, you approved that, right?
He's,
on
That's
hold.
my
He's scared.
understanding.
Yeah, he
Okay.
doesn't wanna talk about this and I don't blame him.
But in here.
No, I have it in here, you know, in my paper, I can tell you that, okay, you got it,
Yep,
or you
the
read it.
Pickleball courts will be surrounded by a solid wood fence that will be 8 feet high on the 3 sides facing abutting residential properties and 4 feet high on the Boulder Path roadside. The applicant stated that his intention is to line the fence on all 4 sides with noise mitigating material. Additional plantings will be installed between the court and residential properties.
Okay.
So
Was this
So what is
windows?
there is different from
there's
that.
nothing in there from about windows, and it's not 8 feet high.
Was that an actual condition or was that a finding of fact?
No, it's a condition.
It was a condition and.
No, he's right.
Was it
No,
He's
finding
right.
of
it's in the
fact?
It's in the findings of fact.
So that's what Craig said he would do, but we couldn't force him to do it. At least that's my knowledge.
Nice catch.
You might be right about that. I remember that discussion, yes.
Anybody remember?
But doesn't, I feel like Laura said, if the applicant is in front of us telling us their intentions, then that is what we hold them to.
no.
Well, yeah, but
This is
then
taking
it
a
needs,
guess.
it
Yes.
then needs to be
But
written
then
to
you have-
reflect
yeah.
that.
So now you
Right.
have to contact Laura and have her start either a cease and desist or that would have to be done through legal.
So what is the purpose of finding a fact then, if that's a fact?
Because when you go to court, if you don't have the findings of fact of why you approved or denied an application, and an applicant says, no, it didn't say that. If you don't have the findings of facts to back up your decision, then I've seen it get overturned.
So we have the finding of fact backing up that decision. It's not in the condition.
But it's not in the condition.
That's why I say make everything a condition and make the conditions.
One more time,
But again,
absolute
even-
specificity.
Yeah.
Even if it is a condition that still has to go through legal. I mean, you can request it. But everything has to be done through legal once it becomes like a code enforcement. So.
Meaning we shouldn't be wasting our time on it.
No.
Well, you can't answer
I have
that.
a
We
question.
I think it's
Send the
subjective.
letter. The planning board could send a letter and say, hey, during the meeting, you said X, Y, and Z. Are you?
Do
going
we
to
even know
Is it
if
a
it's?
problem?
An
It
issue.
Is it
looks
an
like,
issue?
it looks like it, yeah, right, 4.
It's about 4 feet and there are windows in it.
8.
No, it's
That's
not.
The issue.
It's not that. Has there been complaints about the noise and, to the select, the
Not
select
that I.
board?
No.
heard.
I can look it up
I
on the
mean,
ESR.
you're-
Dave's not here, obviously.
Okay,
He has not reported noise complaints associated with that.
okay.
And I'm
Or
aware
any
of-
complaint?
And it's sparsely used. That is, it's not used very often.
No, it's really not. I mean, we go by there all the time. It's very
You
very
live
quiet.
there.
There's not
Yeah,
a lot of
very
people there.
limited.
We'll see what
Yeah.
happens this summer.
Well, that's because of the way he set it up and what he charged for it.
Okay.
He may change
Whatever.
that.
That's
Yeah.
neither here nor there. All right.
Right. And we have budget review underway. The select board is very aware of this. We'll to see in the future who our legal counsel is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not certain.
So we're postponing master plan action review items to next meeting?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, select board, you have a report.
Just one thing, the wastewater treatment plant needs to be added to the CIP.
Mhm.
And we need to look at that both from a short-term and a long-term perspective.
Hmm.
such as issues with expansion coming down the road, if that were to be needed to accommodate development and so forth. So that's something we've talked about just briefly at the select board level, and it's something that we need to do legally if we're ever going to assess impact fees, for instance.
Is there a reason that's not part of the operating budget? Why would it be part of CIP?
So if
It's a,
if
it's
a
a,
project's not
capital
included in the CIP,
improvement.
you can't collect an impact fee on it.
right,
What's an impact fee?
Impact fee is a portion of a development that could increase the necessity of a capital improvement project. So say traffic, say there's a big development that goes in. The capital improvements program or plan has a road reconstruction project in it. This new development is going at the end. This new development will increase the traffic by 30%. Say the road's gonna be $300,000. So they would have to pay 30% of that because they would potentially have that much impact on that project.
Okay, so is there something that you foresee as an impact fee for the wastewater treatment plant?
if the
Hotel,
entire
Housing
uh
projects.
yeah.
land is
Development.
developed and expanded and large hotels put in and so forth, it would be likely that we would need to expand
Expand it.
the wastewater treatment plant to accommodate that future development.
But I
and so
thought it
forth.
was part of the future planning to have more capacity than we currently need. Why,
No, There
right?
was very strong sentiment at town meeting that the wastewater treatment plant be developed to accommodate the current needs of the town right now.
But
As a means
expanded.
of reducing
Or
the
expanded.
overall cost
Easily
of that project.
But easily
expandable.
expandable.
Easily
That
expandable,
was
yes,
the goal
so
of the
the
development
building will-
request.
Building. is
notionally,
big
the
enough.
building has the space and such, but for instance, if you had to add additional membrane bioreactor cassettes to accommodate additional flows, for instance, those cost money, so that would be an
Yeah.
expansion to accommodate future development.
To
And
answer,
the idea would be to assess the impact fee to the developers, right? Because
Yes.
you guys had talked about that in town meeting as
Yeah,
well.
right.
Okay,
Yes,
understood.
to answer your question, an impact fee for system-wide capital improvements needed because of a new improvement's impact on the town's infrastructure.
Okay.
right.
Things like road changes or improvements, water and sewer systems, schools, public safety facilities such as a fire station, or recreation such as parks, playgrounds, or open space improvements. Capital improvement impact must be included in the CIP in order to be valid.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, everyone.
So,
There's an RSA for that too.
yeah, so
There
Dan
it
and I spoke about that briefly before the meeting, so that we're gonna do our work to include it going forward,
Cool.
make a recommendation.
I have a question for Dan, but it's CIP related because also for the meeting on April 1st, we talked about or was discussed the transfer station meeting, Bethlehem is closing in April, so what are we gonna do with our trash collection and that there was money potentially needed to deal
Yeah.
with that situation. That I felt like I was gonna bring it up our next, should go on a CIP, like if we're,
Yes,
depending on what ends
absolutely.
up
It's
happening.
also a.
but that should be on the
discussion we're having
CIP, right?
now.
I mean, that's a chunk of change.
Is to change, if you will, how we're doing trash collection within the town here. The approach that currently exists of a single truck handling 72, I think it is.
Yes.
Dumpsters is really non-viable over the long term. It's just not a viable thing, the truck's gonna keep.
The word is
breaking down and
unsustainable.
So forth,
Yeah.
it's unsustainable, and that's my favorite word, actually. It is unsustainable, we are looking at options for doing that.
But 200,000 would be a good number on the CIP for
Well,
now as a
we're
placeholder in
looking at
case
a
something
couple of things,
changes.
a couple 100,000 would be one of the things that would need to happen. Is that we would use compactors and then we would have to have a pole building, if you will, over those. The rough estimate that I've heard was a couple of 100,000.
Yeah. Okay.
For that, if we're going to do that in the, if you will, short term. that could go so far as to even needing a special town meeting to approve funding for that, if you will.
Okay.
But as a minimum, that is an item that probably should be added to the CIP.
A big part of that, sorry, that process is also driven by, we've been informed that the landfill in Bethlehem is closing.
Yeah,
In April.
2027.
Correct.
yep.
So as of right now, Hemi Baker Solid Waste District lists Rochester, New Hampshire as our next closest option, which,
That's all.
That's the other side of the world.
Yes,
especially in a big green.
it's an all-day trip.
Yeah.
Charlestown brings their trash all the way up here too.
Yeah.
That's a little.
So-
Can't get there from here.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do?
Yeah,
So that's the
there
municipal
is-
solid waste committee.
There is a. Solid waste
Group, it's here, no, they already have it.
Municipal solid waste group working that right now. Wendy's heading that up. And they're actively pursuing this. And there are decisions that ultimately need to be made and probably public hearings and so forth associated with that process.
Mhm.
And it's worth
Right.
mentioning, because I watched a few of the meetings and that kind of thing, that it is going to become much more expensive to get rid of our solid waste regardless of which of the options gets chosen.
Oh, yeah. It's just.
Burn it,
At
And
one
take
point,
it.
I
incinerate a
believe we
road,
had
open
an
it back up.
We had an incinerator for 1 year here, apparently. I saw somewhere in the past history of the town. I was reading past history.
Pollution.
And I was saying that.
Yeah, you think you got
surrounding
problems
towns have
now.
started
Really?
going
You wanna
into
go down
something
that road?
called Closed compactors.
They don't
Burning
recycle here,
crates.
everything
they
goes
don't
to the
have to
ground.
Build
Worried about
buildings.
it.
I'm sure you guys have already
Um,
looked into that, but it
I-
sounds like it's a closed compacting.
I do not have a good answer as to what's been looked into with respect to
That's
that.
fine. Yeah.
I know there's electrical.
We can have one at a time. The meeting's under control now. Let's hold on.
Okay.
No,
So-
no thanks, Dave.
What happens when we're over the time limit?
I
Okay.
think that's all I have for you guys today.
Okay.
So I just had one more question too, related to CIP and select board too. So with the, so we can add those two things. And then what about has been done or discussed even, with the new rec land that was donated? We all knew when that came in, the former Britain property, that it was, we were gonna need some work done on it, right? Before it could be usable. And we were talking
Yes.
about maybe we got approval to, or it looks like we can use any muck, you know, to move it over to help. But that's still, there's still gonna be a cost associated with developing that land so that everybody can use it. So a CRF fund potentially started for next year might be an option, or has that ever been discussed?
We haven't discussed that in detail, other than the need for it to happen. I know
Okay.
there are actions taking place to figure out what fuel options are.
But it's
You
gonna
mentioned
cost.
putting the muck over the top,
Yeah.
which would be to, if you will, from dredging the pond, theoretically, we could take that material and use that to cap the landfill aspects of that property.
I thought you weren't allowed to do that.
It turns out that I believe we are allowed to do that in spite of
That's good news.
previous comments. The objective there would be twofold. One, it would allow us to, cover that landfill. It would also allow us to dispose of the dredgings from the pond
That would cut
at a
costs.
significantly lower cost
Yeah.
than driving them somewhere out of town.
Yeah,
So we're looking at a
So-
variety of different options there.
Yeah.
But a CRF, you know, until you're ready to do that, to start, it's gonna cost money, so let's start saving a little bit for it. So when the time comes that the select board is ready to do it.
You want to speak to that, Steve?
Yeah, so the landfill closure application with NHDES has been submitted by our consultants in Adnoc Engineering. So we were told, we were submitted about 3 months ago, not to expect anything back 6 to 9 months from that. Their backlog is pretty significant right now. As far as funding, one option, Kathy, could be the municipal facilities capital reserve account that's already established.
Okay.
There's something to think about there, unless you want to be more specific about what happens on that property.
Anything else, Dan?
No.
Good. We don't have a White Mountain National Forest representative. Are you the representative, John?
Well, we kind of work with them with the WVAIA and the Conservation Commission, so if I'm going to answer that question, there's really nothing right now of more or less establishing that connection.
Okay, in the future, I will ask you to have at least made contact or had something to say about the White Mountain National Forest. And similarly, the conservation report, is there anything new?
Yeah, well, there's two things actually where, as the planning board, we're working on action plans, what the Conservation Commissioners heading up on. We're working on that. And also just again, I'm going to repeat myself, but we have a green light on the mitigation for the pond coming into, the stream coming into the pond. Rick Vanderpool will be coming sometime this year, we think probably in the fall.
Good.
That's it.
That's it. All right, now I'm interested in hearing a motion.
We haven't.
Calendar review.
It's a calendar review.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yes. I'm actually too eager to execute
It's my eye.
Rob's ideas, yes.
So the next regular meeting is May 14th.
Okay, now we're done.
I want to add just one thing, just a suggestion, take it or leave it, is that we put an estimated time of adjournment on these. You know, it can't always be 2 hours, but we should try to do that. And I think time boxing has made us more efficient today. Just a comment, I make a
Okay.
motion to,
Good.
go ahead.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any dissenting votes? Motion, the meeting is adjourned.
Can you
I'm
hold John
going to following the
Zoom in
policy
on
to try to keep the meeting for 2 hours.
Okay.
John?
No, I think it's good.
Yes, yes.
Bill, the question. If there's recommendations regarding parking, can I just email you?
That's why I was like,
Yeah.
I sent you an email yesterday.
Because even in this current ordinance,
Yeah, let's go.
it talked about tour buses, trailers, campers. Yeah, we didn't.